What drove the state of New York to spend $23 million in a desperate 23-day manhunt to capture two escaped killers? And how did the situation escalate to a bloody conclusion? Shocking escape of Richard Matt and David Sweat from the Clinton Correctional Facility in June 2015 sparked one of the most intense manhunts in U.S. history. Over a month, thousands of officers, helicopters, and specialized search teams scoured the rugged terrain while the state's resources drained in a race against time. But what pushed the state to go to such extremes? How did this escape lead to a violent, tragic finale? How did a civilian worker at the prison play a pivotal role in helping the prisoners escape? And what drove her to make such a risky decision? The story of Richard Matt and David Sweat's escape is one that continues to capture the public's imagination. In a tale of audacity, deception, and seemingly flawless execution of a daring escape. But it's also a story of failure, both on the part of the prison system and the men themselves. To understand how such a detailed plan came together, we need to look not only at the night they escaped, but also at the history of the men involved, the people who helped them, and mistakes that allowed them to break free. Richard Matt was born on June 25, 1966 in Tonawanda, New York. He had a troubled childhood, spending much of his early life in foster care with his brother. Matt's life of crime began at a young age, with numerous arrests for burglary, rape, theft, and assault in the 1980s and 1990s. He was convicted in 2008 for the brutal murder of his 76-year-old former employer, William Rickerson, whom he kidnapped, tortured, and dismembered. Matt's violent behavior made him one of the most dangerous criminals in the state. Known for escaping prisons, he was considered a major threat and was housed at the high-security Clinton Correctional Facility. David Sweat was born on June 14, 1980 in Binghamton, New York. His troubled childhood, marked by violence and anger, led to a life of crime. At 23, Sweat shot and killed Broome County Sheriff's Deputy Kevin Tarsha, earning a life sentence without parole. Like Matt, Sweat showed little regard for authority. He was also incarcerated at Clinton Correctional Facility, where he became known for his violent tendencies and manipulative nature. Matt and Sweat's escape wasn't defined solely by their criminal backgrounds, but also by the unique relationship they formed at Clinton Correctional Facility. They first got to know each other in 2010 when they both scored cells in the Honor Block, housing for inmates with good behavior. It is a privileged housing unit that allowed them access to cooking stations, televisions, wall-mounted telephones, showers, and card tables in the cell house at specified intervals during the day. Although Matt was removed from the block in 2011, Sweat continued to send him treats, including rolled tobacco, calling him Hacksaw. They later shared a workstation in the tailor shop and were reunited in the Honor Block in 2013 and again in January 2015. This proximity allowed them to plan their escape, lobbying to be placed next to each other to finalize their getaway. Their time together allowed them to bond and plan the escape that would make headlines. Over several months, Matt and Sweat meticulously planned their escape while building relationships with prison workers, including Joyce Mitchell, a civilian employee at the prison. Mitchell had a reputation for getting too close to inmates, which was noted by her colleagues starting in 2012. She admitted to investigators that she tried to build rapport with prisoners. Despite concerns, Mitchell was put in charge of the tailor shop where both Matt and Sweat worked. She regularly brought baked goods for the inmates, including Matt, whom she gave cookies, cakes, and meals like venison. Sweat and Matt both cultivated a relationship with Mitchell, which made her feel special, and she began focusing her attention on them, especially Sweat. In late 2014, an anonymous letter tipped off prison officials about a possible relationship between Mitchell and Sweat. Mitchell and Sweat denied the claims, but Sweat was moved from his position. Mitchell, however, remained in charge of the tailor shop and was upset by Sweat's departure. Inmate testimony revealed she had a serious crush on him. Matt then stepped in and won Mitchell's affection, which she admitted made her feel good. He began requesting contraband, including reading glasses with lights so he and Sweat could paint at night. He also asked for food and cayenne pepper to throw off the scent of search dogs, which were part of their escape plan. Matt and Sweat's plan involved using tools that were smuggled into the prison by Mitchell, including hacksaws and chisels. Over several weeks, the men carved their way through the walls of their cells, creating a tunnel that would lead them to freedom. But this was no ordinary tunnel. It was a complex system of hidden passages that required a level of meticulous planning and precision. Matt and Sweat's escape was not just a matter of breaking out. It was about outsmarting the entire prison system. But there was more to their plan than just escaping. The men had no illusions about the difficulties they would face once they were on the outside. They knew that in order to evade capture, they would need a network of people who could help them, and that's where Joyce Mitchell came in. Sweat considered various escape plans, but ultimately decided on using the prison tunnels. To execute this, they needed tools, so Matt began working on Mitchell, who had previously established a close relationship with the inmates. Sweat, still not in the tailor shop, passed notes to Mitchell through Matt. Matt told Sweat, "She's fucking nuts. She'll bring us whatever we want. Just tell me what you need and I'll get her to bring it in." In February 2015, Mitchell smuggled in 6 hacksaw blades, which Matt taped to his body and smuggled into his cell. Over 3 weeks, the two used the tools during recreation time to cut through their cell walls. As Sweat explored the tunnels, he realized they needed more tools. Mitchell provided 2 chisels, 2 concrete drill bits, and a punch, hidden inside 2 pounds of ground hamburger meat, which Palmer delivered to the inmates in late April or early May 2015. Mitchell's ability to get tools into the prison was largely due to the guards' negligence in searching her bag before work. Sweat explored the tunnels each night, deploying a dummy made of his sweatshirt and prison pants after the 11 p.m. check. Sweat climbed out of his cell 85 times without detection, as the required cell checks were never thoroughly performed. Sweat's cell was never searched, and Matt's cell was only searched in March 2015 when guards missed the 18.5-inch by 14.5-inch hole in Matt's rear wall. The escape plan even had moments reminiscent of the Shawshank Redemption. Sweat and Matt joked about their escape, comparing their situation to Andy Dufresne's tunnel escape. Sweat even considered breaking a hole in the steam pipe with a hammer, but after hearing how loud it was, he decided to use the hacksaw blades to cut the pipe instead. Sweat also mentioned the physical toll of his escape, claiming to be in the best shape he'd ever been in, losing 30 pounds from climbing through tunnels and sawing through pipes. He also kept track of Matt's waist size with a tape measure to ensure Matt could fit through the tunnels. A tape measure from the tailor shop marked National Guard was recovered from the tunnels after the escape. On the night of June 5, 2015, Sweat broke through a steam pipe and crawled into the tunnel that he and Matt had been working on. The tunnel led to 2 manholes, one opening into a power plant yard, which Sweat deemed too risky, and the other to a street intersection outside the prison walls. He sawed the chain off the second manhole, allowing them to escape. To avoid detection, Matt and Sweat used a dummy method. After the 11 p.m. rounds, they executed their plan. Matt left 2 handwritten notes in his cell. One on a notepad left on a table stated, "You left me no choice but to grow old and die in here. I had to do something." A second note written on a wall calendar illustrated with reproductions of his own artwork read, "Time to go, kid," with the date 6/5/15. Sweat affixed notes along the escape route, which he says Matt also wrote. The note that said, "Have a nice day," with an offensive image, Sweat says, was given to him by another inmate a few days before. The escape began on June 6, 2015, when Matt and Sweat slipped out of their cells and into the underground maze beneath Clinton Correctional Facility. The tunnel bypassed many security features, and the entire escape took less than an hour. The men emerged under the cover of darkness, free, at least temporary, in the woods outside the prison. On June 6, 2015, Richard Matt and David Sweat made their bold escape from Clinton Correctional Facility. The prison was calm that night. The staff focused on their usual duties. Having already drilled holes and created a tunnel, the men slipped out of their cells and into the underground maze beneath the facility. Their tunnel led them through passageways and pipes, bypassing most of the prison's security systems. After navigating the maze, they reached a manhole that would lead them to freedom. Emerging into the night under the cover of darkness, they were finally free, at least temporarily. The escape had been successful, and for a brief moment, they managed to outwit the authorities. The men knew their freedom came with risks. As fugitives, they had to be cautious with every move. They hid in the dense woods of upstate New York, moving under the cover of night and using connections to avoid detection. The pair carried a guitar soft case filled with extra clothes, granola bars, peanuts, and pepperoni. Sweat believed the guitar case would mislead anyone who saw them, making it look like they were returning from a music gig rather than escaping prison. However, as they emerged from a manhole, they were nearly caught by a car approaching. Matt panicked and ran into a nearby backyard, but Sweat managed to calm him down, and the car's driver was fooled by their explanation. The two then continued their escape through the woods, avoiding capture. The escape was discovered on June 6 during the 5:30 a.m. count. Prison authorities found an external breach near a street outside the facility, and it was confirmed that Matt and Sweat had tunneled out. The two had been housed in a privileged unit that allowed them access to cooking stations and other amenities. The escape, which involved cutting through walls and using contractor tools that were returned afterwards, was described as elaborate, drawing comparisons to the 1962 Alcatraz escape and the fictional Shawshank Redemption. Governor Andrew Cuomo visited the facility to assess the situation, and it was revealed that Joyce Mitchell, a prison employee, was allegedly supposed to pick them up, but she was hospitalized due to chest pains. Gene Palmer, another prison worker, was later charged for aiding their escape. A note was left on the pipe they cut to escape, reading, "Have a nice day," with an offensive image of a stereotypical Asian smiley face wearing a rice hat. Once the escape was discovered, a massive manhunt was launched. Authorities quickly realized the gravity of the situation. Clinton Correctional Facility, known for being one of the most secure prisons in the U.S., had been breached, raising questions about the prison system's effectiveness. Matt and Sweat were eventually separated as the hunt intensified. A staggering $23 million was spent on the search, which involved over 1,500 law enforcement officers. They scoured the dense woods and small towns surrounding the prison, following more than 2,500 leads in a rural area near the Canadian border. Residents in northern New York were urged to stay vigilant and lock their doors. As the days passed, the hunt grew more urgent. FBI agents and U.S. Marshals joined the effort, expanding the search into Vermont and alerting authorities in Canada and Mexico. Matt and Sweat had originally planned to be picked up by Joyce Mitchell, a prison tailor who would drive them to safety. However, Mitchell was unable to meet them as planned, forcing the escapees to improvise. On June 9th, authorities received a tip that the pair might have been spotted in Willsboro, New York. They spent the next 2 days retracing their steps near Dannemora and expanded their search to the border of Vermont. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and Customs and Border Protection, combed through the area. A $50,000 bounty was offered for each escapee, which later increased to $75,000 when additional rewards were added. By June 11th, the search had grown more intense. The number of officers increased to over 500, and search teams, including bloodhounds, began focusing on a wooded area near Caddyville. Police also expanded their search to nearby Plattsburgh and Lake Champlain, putting up billboards across New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Pennsylvania. Still, there were no confirmed sightings of Matt and Sweat. On June 12th, Joyce Mitchell was arrested and charged with aiding the escape. Despite the ongoing efforts, rain and bad weather on June 13th hampered the search. Helicopters, ATVs, and search dogs continued their efforts, but the escapees remained elusive. The search expanded further, with authorities focusing on Allegheny County in western New York on June 20th after a sighting in the town of Friendship. By June 22nd, the search returned to the area near the prison after a cabin in Owl's Head was broken into, and DNA evidence confirmed that Matt and Sweat had been there recently. The dramatic manhunt for escaped prisoners Richard Matt and David Sweat came to a tragic conclusion in late June 2015, nearly 3 weeks after their escape from Clinton Correctional Facility. Despite an intense search, it was Matt's declining health that ultimately led to his downfall. Reports indicated that Matt had fallen ill from consuming spoiled food or contaminated water during his time on the run. After several days of hiding in Franklin County, New York, Matt was discovered by authorities on June 26. A confrontation ensued when Matt shot at the driver of a passing RV. U.S. Border Patrol agents responded, and after a violent shootout, Matt was fatally shot in the head, ending his part in the escape. However, for David Sweat, the escape story was not over. Just 2 days later, on June 28th, New York State Trooper Sergeant Jay Cook spotted a man walking near the Canadian border. Upon recognizing Sweat, Cook tried to stop him, but Sweat fled towards the woods. Cook chased him and fired 2 shots, hitting Sweat in the shoulder and arm. Sweat was captured, critically injured, and transferred to Albany Medical Center, and later moved to a maximum security prison, marking the end of the manhunt. The escape was not just a violent ordeal, but also highlighted shocking prison corruption. Joyce Mitchell, the civilian worker at the prison, had aided the escape by providing Matt and Sweat with tools like hacksaw blades and chisels. It was later revealed that Mitchell had even planned to murder her husband Lyle to help the inmates escape, but she ultimately backed out. Further investigation into the escape revealed how meticulously Matt and Sweat had planned their breakout. They had practiced their escape inside the prison and narrowly avoided detection on multiple occasions during the manhunt. At one point, they hid in a cabin as 3 people arrived but decided to leave when the people didn't stay long. Another time, Sweat narrowly escaped detection when a police officer passed by a hunting tree stand where he was hiding. According to Sweat, the 2 men separated on June 23rd as Matt became weaker and slower, which hindered their escape efforts. The aftermath of the escape included not just the capture of Sweat, but also a deeper look into prison security. In September 2015, Joyce Mitchell pleaded guilty and was sentenced to up to 7 years for promoting prison contraband and criminal facilitation. She was also fined $6,375 in order to pay nearly $80,000 in restitution. Despite initial denials, Mitchell was paroled in February 2020 after serving nearly 4.5 years in prison. The investigation into the escape was thorough, focusing on the circumstances surrounding the breakout, including the prison's design and security flaws. It was discovered that the manholes used by the inmates to escape were subsequently welded shut. Mitchell's involvement in the escape was discovered when she confessed to providing inmates with tools, and it was revealed that she had been planning a murder-for-hire plot to help Sweat and Matt escape. Authorities later determined that her husband was unaware of the plot. Mitchell's involvement was crucial in the inmates' escape, but it was the failures of the prison system that allowed the escape to happen in the first place. As the investigation continued, authorities learned that Matt had fallen ill due to spoiled food or contaminated water, leading to his final discovery. Authorities found Matt's body, and an autopsy revealed his cause of death as brain damage from gunshot wounds. Matt's blood alcohol level was also found to be 0.18%, further shedding light on the chaotic final days of his escape. The escape and its aftermath had a lasting impact on the prison system and law enforcement, revealing vulnerabilities that led to serious questions about the future of corrections and prison security. While Matt paid with his life and Sweat faced additional prison time, the consequences of the escape were felt for years, both inside and outside the prison walls. David Sweat pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts of first-degree escape and promoting prison contraband. He was sentenced to 3.5 to 7 years, to be served consequently with his life sentence, in order to pay $79,841 in restitution. In March 2022, a judge authorized the force feeding of Sweat, known for hunger strikes, and permitted the use of physical restraints, medications, and chemical sedation if necessary. Gene Palmer, a prison worker, pleaded guilty to promoting prison contraband and was sentenced to 6 months in jail, fined $5,375, and served 4 months before being released for good behavior. The events were dramatized in the Showtime miniseries Escape at Dannemora, directed by Ben Stiller. The escape of Richard Matt and David Sweat from the Clinton Correctional Facility was a chilling reminder of the consequences of life on the run. While Joyce Mitchell's involvement may have seemed driven by personal connections, the tragic end of their escape proves that no matter how carefully planned, prison escapes inevitably lead to disaster. Ultimately, it cost lives and left a lasting scar on everyone involved. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to Breakout Bank for more videos.